Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. I'm Josh Williams, and I'm joined by David Hughes. Dave, how are we getting on this week, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Josh. How are you? More importantly,
I'm good. Wig is getting slightly out of control. How's yours getting on?
yeah, same. The only thing was though, I was thinking about this before. This is our last week potentially, isn't it? That we're going to record before being able to get our haircut. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of just putting up with it. No cap this time. I'm going to face the issue head on, and no pun intended there, but face the issue head on, and and yeah, show the people the beast, so to speak.
yeah. One more week of bearing with the awful haircuts. To be honest,
Yours doesn't look that bad, to be fair. Yours
it
looks like
feels it.
normal.
It feels it.
Yeah,
It's keeping me here
heavy.
more. But anyway, we've got a podcast to get to. So
Yeah,
this week we're going to speak about Leicester. Bit of an earlier show than usual this week. We actually played last night, so this is a sooner than usual Analysing Anfield episode for us. Not exactly sure when it'll get released. Then we're going to look ahead to Atalanta. Brief word on them, only a brief word because we did preview them last week or the week before. And then we're going to look ahead to the weekend fixture with Brighton. So straight into it then. Last night's game, Leicester City, top of the table. We previewed it, but we weren't overly sure what to commit to really on the preview, simply because of the injuries and stuff. But to be honest, the match played out, in my opinion. Not sure about you, Dave, but for me, it played out how last season's two meetings played out really.
yeah, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, what I'd say was, I thought it's important to point out, considering this is analysing Anfield, just how good Liverpool were. Thought they were pretty much faultless, by far the better side, which is pretty impressive when you consider all the issues that they had in terms of injuries, players not being available. So to put in that kind of performance that they did, I thought was really good, and a testament to them, and really a testament to kind of the structural importance of this Liverpool side. Like, you could go around all the players, pat on the back, saying how well they played, but I think there is more to it. The way these players can kind of fill in at different roles. You look at Milner. I think he played two different roles on the night, didn't he? Wijnaldum drops in at 6. The way these players, even Jones as well, Curtis Jones coming in at like an 8. The way he can just come in and adapt. I think it's a lot more than just being good players. I think there's a lot of good work that goes on behind the scenes, on the training pitch to be able to do that. So Liverpool really good. I have to be honest. I mentioned this to you last night, didn't I, on WhatsApp? But I'm glad I talked down Leicester, because I thought they were really disappointing, and pretty poor. Didn't really test Liverpool at all on the night.
No, I would agree. I distinctly remember saying last season that this Liverpool team is a nightmare for Leicester because of how Liverpool want to play on an ideal day compared to how Leicester want to play on an ideal day. This season, I wasn't overly certain it would happen again, largely because Leicester have seemed a bit more adaptable, a bit more able to change when it comes to imposing a bit of a counter-attacking game. I think Rodgers has generally struggled a little bit with that in his career. He's really good when he's dominant, when he's in control of the dominant players. But when he's maybe the underdog, he's not that great at coming up with a counter-attacking game. Obviously, they beat City 5-2. Yes, there was a few penalties in there. They beat Arsenal. I think it might have been 1-0, maybe 2-0 at the Emirates. So it just looked that, and Liverpool were obviously a lot less equipped to cope with those moments, let's say, those counter-attacking moments that I knew Leicester were going to get without Van Dijk, without Gomez. But no, it just played out exactly how it would if Liverpool had the first 11. Really dominant game, and I thought it was largely perfect. Really, I think Klopp said last season at the King Power that it was pretty much a perfect game, and this was similar, a little bit less perfect when we go into the numbers, but I think from Liverpool's side of things, it was really dominant, and from Leicester's side of things, I don't think Leicester played like you'd expect Leicester to play. I think If Leicester weren't wearing the Leicester kit, it could have been any team really, couldn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I think when they kind of play this tactic of sitting in and looking to explode on the counter, I think it's really important that you get your passes right when you do that. Those forward balls, you get them spot on, and I just think all night they weren't doing that. They just didn't look a threat. I think one of their biggest chances of the night might have been a Vardy chance, if memory serves me right, and even that was potentially offside. Like it's just, as I said, I just thought they were. I'm very conscious of sounding like it was all Leicester being bad and Liverpool not being good. Liverpool were good, but Liverpool are always that good at home. Yet there's the caveat of they haven't got so many key players, but Liverpool performed how you'd expect them to perform. I just think Leicester were really poor. And on another day, I think that could have been easy, about 5 or 6-0.
Yeah, I mean the numbers captures that. To be honest, Liverpool 24 shots on a day. Leicester took 11. So that's shot differential there of 13. In any game, any team not shooting 13 times more than the other team, they're going to win most weeks. Liverpool got 13 of those on target, Leicester 4. And the expected goals was high. Liverpool's expected goals 3.7, and Leicester 1.3. And expected goals usually tends to be quite reserved, quite conservative when it comes to value and chances and stuff. So to post 3.7, that is quite high. I think I'm going to check it now, but I think that's Liverpool's highest of the season in a single game. And I think it just captures Liverpool's dominance on a day, Dave, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I'm just having a look at Understats map now, and I'm counting here: 1, 2, 3, 4 big chances inside the 6-yard box. And when I say big, I'm talking 0.4 upwards in terms of XG value. I know we often say that you don't like to focus too much on individual XG value for shots, but that does tell a story. And then there's another one just outside the 6-yard box that's over 0.5. I mean, they're really high quality chances in really good areas. Anything normally in the 6-yard box has got a good chance of converting to a goal, any shot from that area. And as I said, Liverpool had 4 inside, and I think they actually had another couple, but I'm talking about 4 really big chances inside, and then they had another really big one just outside. So, I mean, that tells a story in itself.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it is Liverpool's highest XG of the season so far in the Premier League. That is last season in the Premier League. The Leicester game was, this is away, the third highest XG that Liverpool posted, and the home fixture at Anfield was the fifth highest XG that Liverpool posted. So, just generally against Leicester, against Rodgers' Leicester, Klopp's Liverpool tends to do really, really well. For a number of reasons, obviously the style of play clashes there. Leicester tend to be quite methodical, building through the thirds of the pitch, breaking the lines, and forging clear-cut chances, basically. And that tends to play into Liverpool's hands in many ways. Obviously, Liverpool pressing, counter-pressing, being really organised, difficult to play through, really athletic. And it's difficult, usually, to generate clear-cut attempts against Liverpool. This season, not so much. But I think Leicester found it tricky again. So looking
It's
at the
it's
XG, we should have been maybe
yeah.
about 4.
Even it's weird though. I look at that XG, and for Leicester, this is. I look at the chances. Obviously, they had, how many shots was it? They had 11
11.
on the, yeah, and they had 4 on target. That just, it doesn't feel like it captures the game. It's so bizarre. Even the XG that they've put up for the match, again, it feels a little bit like it doesn't maybe tell the full story. Maybe I'm just being too harsh on them, but I just thought they were pretty poor on the night. I have to say, I was
No,
really
I would
underwhelmed.
agree. I would agree. I remember one shot in particular. Harvey Barnes arriving in
Mm,
the box off a Jamie Vardy cutback. But other than that, I couldn't really tell you where they get the 1.3 XG on the day, to
mm.
be honest. Where they get the 11 shots, 4 on target. I couldn't really tell you. Um,
I'd love to know what maybe the the post shot XG values were for that game. You know, just to try and get an idea of how threatening those shots actually turned out to be. Because, I think when you see these big chances, you kind of go, oof, you know, that was close. But as I said, there's none of those lasting memories in the game at all. Yeah, it's a strange one, that.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to last season, it's probably Liverpool's attack being very, very similar. Obviously, 24 shots. I think we took around that at the King Power. We took around that at Anfield. The difference this time around, I suppose, in comparison to last season, was the shots faced. Liverpool last season against Leicester, I think, faced in and around 5 shots. This season, obviously, it was up to 11, but as I said, I don't really remember many of them. They never really felt overly dangerous, and Liverpool, I think for me, always felt in control. I think is probably the best way of putting it. Liverpool always felt in control of the match, never felt overly phased. I think after the game, when Milner was speaking, I think it was, he said in the second half, we weren't as good, but I never really picked up on that. I never really felt like there was a period where we were hanging on. Not really like that.
Yeah, I think when you come up against Leicester, one of the biggest things you normally see is the defence getting stretched, and that's how they kind of create. And you know, they can make you look very unorganised very quickly in transitions, and that's one thing that stands out for me. I don't think at any point Liverpool did. You know, you said that you don't think they look particularly phased or anything. I agree. I don't think they look stretched at any point in the game. Maybe if you conceded a few half chances, but I just at no point did Leicester look like they were going to come back in the game. And 2-0 can often be a bit of a precarious scoreline sometimes. You know, you concede one and suddenly the nerves kick in, but Leicester didn't even look close to getting that one.
No, I mean, I think Rodgers labelled Jamie Vardy a few weeks back as the best counter-attacking player in the league. To be honest, I'd probably agree with him. But when it comes to what he did against Liverpool, I think if you keep Vardy quiet for an extended period like that, with a makeshift back four, you know, that's a serious performance, and obviously a lot of it stems from cutting off the supply to him, which I think we did. I think we were really on Maddison's toes. I think Maddison's first touch and receiving between the lines was flawless, I thought. But even despite that first touch, which is supposed to buy you a few seconds, Liverpool was still right on top of him, just didn't give him a second. It was just a top defensive display, to be honest. One of the few clean sheets that Liverpool have managed this season. Obviously, we should probably speak about the tactical side of Liverpool's game. It was 4-3-3 once again, but with Milner playing as Trent, with Jota playing as Salah, and with Curtis Jones in centre mid. This is not something that we usually do. But Dave, who was your man of the match?
Yeah, no, it's hard to look past Jota, I think, because he capped off a really good performance with a goal. Like he just made you not miss Salah, which is some feat, to be fair. He'd probably take it for me, Jota, but I would definitely put Jones in that conversation as well. You could probably put Milner. In fact, you could arguably say of the lads who come in, there's you probably maybe your man of the match, and then you'd put Firmino somewhere in there as well, because I thought Firmino played really well.
Well, to be honest, you
I
know,
sat on the fence there. Sorry, mate. I'll go Jota.
Well, I would agree again, but I think particularly Milner, who I tend to feel a little bit disappointed by his contributions sometimes. Not necessarily. Obviously, he offers a lot when it comes to leadership and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, particularly his contributions with and without the ball. I think sometimes he can demand a bit more from himself. But I think in particular this game, obviously you think of what Trent offered last season against Leicester. He was, you know, it was one of the games where I think those who weren't convinced by Trent will have been after watching him against Leicester last season. Milner obviously came in as Liverpool's right back. And I'm just in the middle of writing a piece on him for the Echo, because the way he came in and kind of acted as Trent, I thought was quite interesting. So in the game, he posted 10 passes to the final third. Curtis Jones posted 8. No other Liverpool player posted above 4. And on the Leicester side of things, the highest on the Leicester side was Maddison with 5. So Milner posted 10 in that department. Then when it comes to passes into the penalty box, Milner posted 5, again, more than any other player. Andy Robertson with 3. And then on the Leicester side, you had Cengiz Under with 3. And Harvey Barnes on 2, Maddison on 1. So again, Milner on 5. And then progressive passes, I won't come out with the definition because it's just a bit elaborate, but picture the progressive pass in your own mind, I suppose. You'll probably get it right. Milner posted 11. The next best on the Liverpool side was Curtis Jones with 6. And then on the Leicester side, James Justin with 7. So in terms of progressing the ball and basically doing what Trent usually does, I thought Milner was actually really impressive, and he could have came in and basically played to his strengths. Some players come in and just kind of let other players do their thing and kind of just drift into the background and do a job. But I thought Milner's impact on the actual game, particularly when it comes to bringing Liverpool up the field, I thought he did really well in Trent's absence and offered a lot of what Trent usually does.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I think it goes back to that point I made earlier about the importance of the structure and the work that must go in behind the scenes on Liverpool's structure, because Liverpool have two things. They obviously have a set way of playing. Everybody understands the roles in each position, but they also have versatile players who come in as well. And often the roles that they play, like Milner there, that's a more enjoyable role, I'd say, in terms of you get to be more, offer more and contribute more in attack. Whereas I think sometimes players have to blunt themselves and almost self-sacrifice their own performance for the good of the team. I think the perfect player, as an example of that, is Wijnaldum. You see what he does when he goes abroad, with the national team in international matches, gets to kind of play a more creative attacking role. I assume a more enjoyable role, because we all know from playing football, you like to score goals, you like to get assists. But he then comes to Liverpool, plays in the midfield, and kind of sacrifices all that to do the dirty work and to be a lot more rigid and a lot more reliable and a bit more of an engine. But that's the role that's expected of him. More so yesterday, playing in the number 6. But that's what Liverpool players seem to do across the board. Even Jota comes in, he has to kind of play more like Salah, doesn't he? Jones comes in that position, he has to start and play more like whoever plays in that position, whether that's Wijnaldum, Henderson, whoever. And I think Milner is an example of that. If Milner would have come in, say for argument's sake, as a number 8 yesterday, you would have seen a different performance again from the same player, wouldn't you? But obviously he's coming at right back, and his role is to replicate the normal right back, who's Alexander-Arnold, and I do think he's done a really good job of it. He never ceases to amaze me, Milner. I feel like I can never see him retiring. He just seems to go, and go.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think what you've just said there about, if he played in centre mid, he played differently. I think that's a really crucial thing to note with this Liverpool team, to be honest. I think the 4-3-3 now is very much established. You know what to expect from every single position. And I think it's like if Milner was to play as a centre mid, despite still being James Milner, he will play entirely differently as a centre mid as he will, as a right back. Wijnaldum playing as a 6 differently to an 8, and all that sort of stuff. So it's just, I think a lot of it probably stems from just the tactical awareness of the team, and the system just kind of being ingrained into every player. Especially, I think we mentioned last week when we were previewing what the team might be. I think we mentioned about Milner being one of the few who's been there since Klopp got appointed. So in terms of knowing the system inside out, you got Milner right up there, really. But in terms of, a takeaway from this game and possibly from the weekend, I think looking ahead to the season, who's going to win it, that sort of thing. Liverpool are currently second, I suppose, but on the same number of points as Spurs, 20, I think it is, at the top of the table. 7 points, I think, is what separates first, and I think it might be something like 12th in the table. But I think I have a bit of a theory already as to, will Liverpool's attack be what wins this league this season? because I think this is one of the few departments out there that does seem to be on a different level to any other rival.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I try and think of who else is in and around there in terms of attacking output, backed up by like say underlying metrics as well. And you've got you've got obviously Liverpool, Chelsea is around there. Tottenham will be up there. I think Leeds, but then Leeds have such kind of issues in defence as well. I expect theirs to drop off a little bit, but beyond that, you'd expect to see City, and I do think City will kind of find some attack and flow again. But I think although I think they've only played 8 games, is it? It's still just so early on, it could all change. It could look completely different in 8 games' time from this point. But I just don't see it being. I just can't see City replicating what Liverpool do. I feel like they were neck and neck for a couple of years, but the way it seems now, it doesn't. For me, anyway, I just can't see City closing that gap and going neck and neck with Liverpool again. So you are kind of looking from an attacking point of view, Tottenham and Chelsea. How would Tottenham look without Harry Kane? I don't know. I think Chelsea have so many good attackers that they have potential to score plenty every week, but there is still that lack of familiarity that Liverpool have got now that we've just made a big point about talking. When injuries come in or players aren't available, will others be able to slot in with the same kind of efficiency that Liverpool are showing? I don't know. So on that basis, I would say that in many ways they are quite unrivaled at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers again on this, the goals scored column of the table, Liverpool currently joint second. Chelsea have scored 22. Liverpool and Spurs have both scored 21. Just as an outside point, City have scored 10. And then when it comes to the shooting and all that sort of stuff, Liverpool currently top, posted 152 shots so far. Leeds in second on 131. Obviously, a few teams have played one fewer game. So if we're doing shots per match, Liverpool currently posting 16.9 shots per match. That is again top of the league. City in second on 15.3 shots per match. Then, funnily enough, Aston Villa, then Leeds, then Man United, then Chelsea. So I think obviously City get a bit of a boost there. City are posting the second most shots in the league, and it's not that far behind Liverpool. But then, if we look at XG per shot, which offers an insight into kind of how clear cut your chances are on average, the attempts that you take. The average shot that Liverpool take has roughly a 14% chance of finding the net. City, based on the shots that they've taken so far, they've got an average of about 8%. That's quite a difference in in the realms of XG. That's a big difference. I know it's only 6%, but honestly, there's a bit of a difference in that. Spurs, Everton, Leicester, all posting 13% on the expected goals per shot table. But I think what I'm getting at is Liverpool are by far the best in the league at merging quality and quantity in the same department, really. Most teams, like Spurs, for example, Spurs have got the quality, 13% per shot, but on the quantity side, they are behind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're behind 6 teams on the quantity side. Liverpool are top for quality and top for quantity. Hopefully, I haven't been too confusing there, but
No.
I think what I'm getting at is just on the underlying numbers side. I think Liverpool's performance in open play, sort of thing, excluding penalties and all that sort of stuff, it's just the best. It's comfortably the best. And if you think of Liverpool's front three, the players I think are also the best. They're never injured. And the fourth, who we've just signed in the summer, Diogo Jota, he's clearly contributing, clearly scoring whenever he's given the opportunity, really. And I just think over the course of the season, especially given the fitness and the injuries and the lack of clean sheets that we're seeing, I think this season it could be the attack that wins Liverpool the league, which would go against previous years where I think people have looked at Van Dijk and Alisson and Thor, so it's a defence that's got Liverpool over the line now, but I think it might be the attack moving forward.
It could well be, yeah. Because one of the biggest caveats was, what would happen if one of those three got injured? Well, we now know that there's a fourth forward who comes in and kind of replicates the output because he's so versatile. People thought he might have been a Mane kind of replacement, but we've seen him play through the middle, saw him play on the right on Sunday, and he's provided in each of those positions. So suddenly, you've got cover when one of those players do go out. And yeah, I just can't see anyone better in Liverpool from an attacking point of view. Another really important comment on that would be if these numbers and that goal return was on the back of kind of nothing, they just started doing this campaign and it wasn't something that we've become accustomed to over the last couple of years, then maybe you would look at it with a little bit more doubt. But we know that Liverpool have been one of the best attacking sides in the division for the last 2 years, and you just look to be replicating that again this year. So it doesn't look like it's a fluke, which means you can probably guess it's going to be sustainable. And you can talk about defence all you want, but normally when all's said and done, the teams who shoot the most tend to score the most goals, and the teams who score the most goals tend to win the most matches. It's that simple. And the team who wins the most match goes on to win the league.
Yeah, I think the surprising thing is it's got to be City, hasn't it? I mean,
yeah,
it is getting a bit weird. I mean, I've said to a few people, the acid test for me, weirdly, is possibly the next game, maybe the next two. The next two, they're at the Etihad, both games against Burnley and Fulham. Pep Guardiola's City, you would expect to score goals in those games, wouldn't you? Specifically Burnley, every single year, City demolish Burnley at the Etihad. I think it's something like 3 years since Burnley have had a shot on target at the Etihad. That's not a joke. That's an actual thing. And I think City tends to score at least 5 every time. It's a little bit different when you go to Turf Moor, but at the Etihad, it's usually City 5-0, easy as anything, and then Fulham. Obviously, we see Fulham are quite open. I think I'd expect City to score at least 3 against Fulham. But I think in those 2 games, I think if City don't come away with a bag of goals, I think then we can comfortably say, even though it's only around going to be 10 games in by then, I think then I will be able to comfortably say with confidence, City's attack is not the same. Because that's what I'm thinking now.
Josh, just quickly on that. City have, in the last 3 matches against Burnley, have won all 3 at the Etihad by the same 5-0 scoreline. So it's 3 back-to-back 5-0s. Before that was a 4-1. Before that was a 3-0.
Yeah, it is relentless whenever City, because Sean Dyche is always going to play a 4-4-2. Guardiola knows that. Guardiola loves these tactical adjustments and all that sort of stuff. He's at his home ground. He knows exactly how to attack Burnley, how to cause them problems, and 15 goals in 3 games against them. If City's attack is any different, if it has suffered any changes, we will see it against Burnley. But that will be the game for me that'll tell me this attack is no longer the same, or this attack has just been struggling without a striker of late, or whatever. So I'm intrigued to see how that one goes next week. So a brief word then on Atalanta. Just midweek, Liverpool currently top of their Champions League group on 9 points. Ajax on 4, Atalanta on 4, Midtjylland on 0. I think I'm right in saying that Liverpool only need a point to qualify. It's at Anfield. I'm just curious what you're doing, Dave, in terms of your team. Are you giving any players a break and like that? Because I think Klopp is really concerned with the injuries he's picking up here.
If he's got the option to, yeah, if he can, it's got to the point now where, bearing in mind that we do the show every week and we write about Liverpool a few times a week, keep an eye on things closely. I couldn't actually tell you who's available and who's not. I have an idea. I know the obvious ones who are out, but it's very difficult. So, although Klopp will have a better idea, that kind of captures how hard it could be for him to kind of make a rotated team, makeshift team. That being said, if he's got that option, I would rotate it because it's how can I word this? No disrespect to Atalanta, but it's a game on paper where you can probably, although you won't want to lose or even drop any points, you could draw that game and it wouldn't really change the outlook of the group or wouldn't impact qualification options or possibilities. So I'd be inclined to definitely change it, especially given how clear Liverpool are in the group. All the congested fixture list they've got at the moment, and plus Atalanta are in really good form. I've got the stuff up here, and I think they've won one game in 5. So they're not even in the. It's not like you getting this raging Atalanta coming to who's going to cause you big problems. I think they're a little bit out of form as well. So for me, Josh, I'll change it.
Yeah, I think there'll be 1 or 2 changes. I think, given Milner's age, I think Milner will come out. I think Nico Williams will go in. And I think that'll either be. I think Salah will come in because I think he's now had a bit of a break, and I think he's now testing negative. So I think Liverpool might go from 4, as we did. In fact, no, we didn't, did we? Firmino, I think, started on the bench when we went to Italy. But I think he might go from 4. Nico Williams is a right back, and a midfield 2 of maybe Wijnaldum and possibly Jones, but I just can't see Jones in the midfield 2. I don't know why.
Yeah, it seems like he's a little bit more. He's just a little bit better in the opposition's half than maybe his own. I'd probably summarise that.
I'd like to give a nod, by the way, to Wijnaldum because I think he's never ever injured. Right, he's just played for Holland in the international break 3 times. Didn't play 90 minutes in every game, but he played in all 3 games. I think he started all 3. Scored 3 goals in that period. Just came back, played for Liverpool against Leicester, 90 minutes. Probably going to play during the week. Probably going to play next week. The man is just, he's just, what's the word? So robust that it's just such a perk to have a player like that in your team in these times, especially.
Yeah, my toes were curling in the summer, really, when so many people couldn't wait to kick him out the door to get Thiago in when they thought it would have to be a case of a straight swap because just such a disservice to kind of the player that he is. He's such an important player. As I said, he could go and be a number 10 if Liverpool needed him there. He could go and, play. Well, he does play deep. He plays as an 8. He's just an all-round really good midfielder. And it's, as you said, there's got to be this appreciation for him, I think, and people need to start giving him more respect because on top of all the ability with the ball and what he can do on the pitch, as you said, he's always available, and that's key. That is so important.
Yeah, I mean, the game he'll be available for next week is going to be Brighton. We'll get into it now. Good team, Dave. I think anybody that is interested in the performance numbers beneath the surface and all that sort of stuff will look beyond the results and let the numbers basically shape their opinion on Brighton. That's something I certainly do. And I do think that the better than the results, even though they're currently isn't maybe 16th in the table, 15th.
Yeah, they were before the weekend. I imagine they'll still be in and around that position.
They are currently 16th, yeah. But I think what I'm getting at is that they're definitely not the 16th best team in the league, are they?
No, they're not. I wrote about them actually, a bit of an in-depth piece even last week. I had a proper good look at them, and there's so much they got going for them. They've got a clear identity. They can play. They can progress through the lines, and they can get up to the attacking third. They play good stuff and tend to be the better team in most matches. They've lacked that clinical touch, and they've had 1 or 2 vulnerabilities from certain situations at the back. But yeah, on the whole, they're on the way to being a good side without doubt.
Yeah, in terms of the performance side of things, excluding referees, luck, penalties, whatever you want to do, they're just a very well coached team, from what I see at least. I think their attack I would look at as relatively mid-table maybe. And then I think the defence, at the moment at least, looks top 4 standard, to be honest. I think they've currently faced the second fewest, I think it might have been. So City are currently facing the fewest shots in the league per match, 7.5, and then Brighton, 7.6, and then Liverpool on 8.5. So in terms of generating shots against Brighton, it is generally quite tricky. Problem is, when those shots come, they do tend to go in. Their goalkeeping situation is worse than I thought, actually, when I looked into the numbers. Not sure if you're aware of it, Dave. But
Yeah.
they've currently saved exactly half of the shots on target that they've faced. 50% save percentage, which is bad. Funny enough, Liverpool are the second worst at the minute, which I think captures, the deflections that we suffered against Villa, and Ads even came in for a few games and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think Brighton generally tend to suffer whenever they face a shot.
I also think sometimes that it's worth flagging, and it's actually worked out well that you've flagged Liverpool as one of the teams as well. I do think that data sometimes gets skewed a little bit when the teams who face the fewest shots, you look at it, because it sometimes kind of inflates that percentage a little bit, doesn't it? Because they face fewer shots, so one shot can tend to have a greater impact one way or the other. Which I think is more the case with these two potentially. But yeah, what I found, because I did see a lot of the goalkeeping stuff, a lot of criticism of Matt Ryan, and I ended up having a look back of all the goals he conceded pre the Aston Villa game on the weekend, and it was 14 at that stage, but only 6 had come from open play, and obviously, that kind of ties into what we're seeing, that they look good in numbers. They'd had one deflected goal, one own goal, but even the own goal, if you look at it, you might remember it actually, Josh, because the game was quite unforgettable. It was that United one where United won with like a penalty after the final whistle had gone. That was an own goal by Dunk, but Maguire was right there, 2 yards out, he would have put it in anyway. And the main issue seems to be they conceded 4 penalties, and at that point, it was another 4 set-piece goals. I can't remember what Villa's goal was on the weekend. I can't remember if that come from a set-piece or not. But yeah, it seems they got a little... Go on.
The goal scorer was Ezri Konsa, so obviously centre-half, so I'm assuming it was a set-piece. I didn't actually see it myself, but it probably is.
Well, I did watch the game, and then I think they scored straight after half-time, and I was making a cup of tea or something, so I missed it, and I didn't see any replays.
I watched the game, but I missed that goal.
Yeah, because it was straight after that time, wasn't it? But anyway, I'm taking us down a rabbit hole here. Basically, it does seem that they've got obviously issues with the penalties, which you can kind of complain about penalties to an extent, but at the end of the day, we're all playing to the letter of the law at the moment. And set piece goals, they conceded a fair few from set pieces this season, and they had I think it was only 8 sides that conceded more set piece goals last season. And we know sometimes that like set pieces can be a bit of an XG cheat, can't they? We talked about this before, because headers tend to generate less of an XG compared to shots taken with a foot. But if you're having headers from like 6 yards out, they could quite easily end up being goals. So I think that's what's happening at the moment. They've just got a little bit of a vulnerability from set pieces, and it's worth noting, because if someone like Matip's on the pitch, then it could be exploited.
Yeah, it's an interesting shout. I think it's interesting actually when it comes to Liverpool. Obviously, we've just mentioned that Liverpool average the most shots per match. Obviously, Brighton face very few, so it'll be interesting. There's something's obviously got to give. Brighton could be currently posting very few because they haven't yet faced Liverpool. They haven't yet faced. I don't think they've faced City, have they? Usually, your numbers take a bit of a hit when you face the big hitters in the league. So maybe after the weekend coming, Brighton's shots faced average takes a bit of a knock after facing Liverpool. If Liverpool post the usual average of about 15 to 20 in the game.
But Josh, one thing I will say as well is, you're talking about decent attacks. Okay, Everton's attack isn't up there with Liverpool's, but it is one of the better attacks in the Premier League this season. And it's interesting that when they come up against that, they conceded 4 times. So it does make you think, is it when they come up against these better attacking sides, especially Liverpool, which so far look to be the best, are they going to suffer big time as a result?
Yeah, no, it's a good shout. I think in terms of Brighton's attack, I think in the past few months, dating back to last season, they've generally struggled when it comes to putting the ball in the back of the net. But I think progression up the field, they're really good at, to be honest. I had a look at the numbers on that before. But when it comes to facing Liverpool, I wouldn't be surprised if they progress through Liverpool quite well. But when they get to the final third or the business end, the moves kind of fall down a little bit. So when it comes to progressive passes this season, Brighton have currently played the 5th most, probably 6th most, to be honest, because Man United are right behind them and they've played a game less. And then when it comes to passes into the box, Brighton have currently played the 4th most. So that's progression type stuff. But then if you look at like key passes, which is a pass that leads to an assist, Brighton drop a little bit towards mid-table. So it's just kind of like that decisive product when you get to the business end of the pitch. They don't really have much of. They seem to have. I always think when you look at Brighton's squad, they seem to have loads and loads of number 10s.
Yeah,
Loads of very similar players. Loads of
like 5 Lalanas.
loads of Lallana's, loads of Pascal Gross type players who are just nice, progressive, not very nimble. Not the strongest, good in tight spaces, and don't really offer that much when it comes to putting the ball in the net. I'm not sure. It's weird.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, mate, because I grew up Trossard in thinking he's going to be a low-key kind of fancy football treat here because his numbers looked okay, and don't think he scored at all since he's injured now. So, yeah, I've been burnt with that.
He actually played well, I think, against Liverpool last season when we went to Brighton. So,
he is a good player, yeah, he is a good player, to be fair to him.
Yeah, if he's going to be out, that's a good thing, actually. And obviously, we should mention as well, as it stands right now, at least, Lamptey is supposed to be out, which is a big, big benefit because he is a problem. I rate him really high. You know how highly I rate him, Dave.
Yeah.
So it's really good that Liverpool are not going to be facing him. It causes potential problems, even though he's up against arguably the strongest side, Liverpool's defence on the left. I think one thing I was going to flag was that I think against Villa, one thing I picked up on was how well Neil Maupay and Danny Welbeck linked up. I wasn't really aware that Welbeck was starting for them, to be honest. Seems to be injured 24/7, but he's back in, obviously, and his finish against Villa, his little dink over Emmy Martin is actually quite a good finish.
Yeah, it was, because he had a lot of time to think about it as well. And you can often see some panic there, can't you? But no, it was a finish of a seasoned professional. Fair play to him. No, fair play.
So we will wrap up there then. A little bit of a less long pod this week, but we will get. In fact, we need to get Dave's verdict. Dave, verdict on this match.
Okay, yeah. I do think that Brighton are going to be a much tougher game than Leicester were, which, kind of, I am forcing this agenda of Leicester not being good at the moment, just because, they annoyed me last night. I just wanted to see a really good game. That was and that doesn't mean I wanted them to win. I just wanted to see an exciting game. I wanted to see 2 of the best sides go at it. And as I said, Liverpool could have easily won 5 or 6-0. But yeah, I expect Brighton to be a little bit of a tougher game, although I do still fancy Liverpool. But yeah, I think it's going to be tight. I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool.
I'm a bit more confident. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool. I think Klopp will possibly field 4 attackers because I don't think he will drop Firmino after finally getting his goal.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's difficult to drop Jota after the way he's playing at the minute, and obviously he scored again yesterday. Salah's obviously back. Salah will not be on the bench. So I think he might field 4 attackers. And even though Brighton don't face many shots, when they do, Obviously, they tend to find the net based on the numbers, at least. I know that a lot of that comes into penalties and goalkeeping and stuff, but I don't think Matt Ryan's having the best season. So if you couple that in with the fact that Liverpool are probably going to shoot quite a lot, obviously you consider last season when Liverpool punished them when they were trying to build from the back early on. I think Salah might have scored inside the first couple of minutes, or someone scored inside the first couple of minutes. I think Liverpool are probably going to do a similar thing again. So I'm going to go with 3-1 Liverpool, and I think we will do quite well, unless we pick up even more injuries in the build-up.
Well, yeah, that's it. The way it is at the moment, you don't know, do you?
Yeah. So we will be back next week then. So who are we going after Brighton, Dave?
I think Tottenham's coming up, but I don't. It might be another week or two, that one. But I've got the fixtures up here, so give me 2 seconds. It's Brighton, Ajax. What, Wolves at home, which will be interesting.
Wolves at home, is it?
Yeah. So you got so with Atalanta, Brighton, Ajax at Anfield, and then Wolves a few days later at Anfield.
Okay, so we will be back next week then to either preview Ajax or review Ajax, and we'll be looking ahead to the match with Wolves. So thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thank you, mate. Thanks, everyone.
And thanks for tuning in. See you next week.